They called it the Fringe War, a slow-burning galaxy-spanning conflict where empires collided over fractured star systems and mineral-choked moons. Out on the edges of map space, the Galactic Empire was bleeding. Its ranks, filled with disciplined warriors bred for centuries of service, were being outmaneuvered by irregular tactics and relentless ambushes. The enemy, a loosely allied force of insurgents and exiled warlords, didn't fight fair. The Empire needed unpredictability. It needed something alien, even to itself. So they looked to Earth. Humans have been part of the galactic fold for less than a decade, an unassuming species with rudimentary technology, but a violent, chaotic history that intrigued the Empire's tacticians. Their greatest strength, some whispered, was their adaptability. Others saw only recklessness. Either way, one name began circulating through the internal files of the High Command, Sergeant First Class Adrian Locke. His service record was brief, almost aggressively redacted. What little remained, fragments of mission logs, partial after-action reports, hinted at a sniper who'd operated beyond conventional military parameters. His transfer was approved in silence, without ceremony or announcement. Just a data packet, a passenger transport, and an order. When he arrived at Forward Operations Station Crydon, stationed in orbit over the war-torn planet of Ferox 6, he stood out immediately. Not for his stature, though tall by most alien standards, his presence was quieter than expected. But for the way he scanned the hangar, his eyes didn't dart. They calculated. That's him, Commander Verikist, his voice a low chitter through mandibles. The insectoid officer, bred in a hive-caste culture that revered discipline, watched the human disembark with thinly veiled skepticism. He carries no honor crest, no armor, only cloth. The aide beside him, a younger reptilian species known as a Valaxi, checked the file again. It's him, Locke, human sniper, Earth Special Recon Unit. They say he completed 22 operations with no backup, 0 casualties. Not on his side. Exaggerated, surely, Verrick scoffed. But even as he spoke, his compound eyes lingered on the human's weapon, a matte black rifle longer than his own arm span, slung over one shoulder with a worn strap. No adornment, no digital assist nodes. Pure analog. Locke was assigned Omega Squad, a multi-species unit intended for high-risk insertions. His teammates greeted him with the tight-lipped neutrality common to cross-species deployments, mutual tolerance, and nothing more. The squad leader, Lieutenant Kale North, a veteran from the Aquiline Valari race, extended a clipped nod during the orientation briefing. Orders are simple, Kale said, voice resonant with the precise modulation of his people. We're clearing a forward site in Sector 8. Hostile activity has spiked. You'll provide overwatch from elevation. Radio discipline is strict. We don't expect. I don't use radios, Locke interrupted, voice low and flat. Kale blinked. You don't use. I observe patterns. Movement. Timing. I engage when necessary. No chatter. There was silence. Kale studied him for a moment, then made a subtle gesture of acceptance. Fine. Just don't get in our way. Locke didn't answer. He simply turned and left the room, his steps measured, unhurried. The next morning, the drop ship hummed as it descended into Ferox X's upper atmosphere. The squad sat in silence. Locke checked his scope, cleaning the lens with a piece of cloth that looked older than the rest of his gear. Across from him, a hulking Brockery soldier, twice his mass and built of plated muscle, grunted under his breath. You speak often of silence, the Brockery said, but you are loud in tension. I can smell it. Locke didn't look up. Then your nose is broken. A ripple of amusement passed through the squad, breaking the tension for a moment. Even Kale allowed a slight twitch at the corner of his beak. The transport touched down with a thud, and Omega Squad fanned out, boots crunching against the ashen soil. Ferox SX's atmosphere was dense with volcanic ash, filtering the twin suns into a permanent dusk. Structures lay crumbled and half-melted, remnants of orbital strikes and decades-old skirmishes. The squad moved with practiced precision, navigating rubble and debris, forming a perimeter. Locke didn't follow. Instead, he scaled a broken comms tower, moving with uncanny grace despite the worn weight of his rifle. He reached the top lay prone, and adjusted his scope. The battlefield spread before him like a chessboard cracked in half. He closed one eye and let the silence fill him. Through the scope, he watched the world slow. Enemy scouts, barely visible to naked eye, moved through the broken terrain like shadows. They were good, coordinated. Even his squad sensors hadn't picked them up yet. He breathed in. His finger rested on the trigger, not pressing, not waiting, just resting. Below, Omega Squad advanced into the ruins. Kale's voice crackled over the comms. "We're seeing nothing. Proceeding to checkpoint." The first shot cracked through the air like a hammer on glass. One of the enemy scouts collapsed mid-step, lifeless before their body hit the ground. Another shot, then another. In 12 seconds, 7 bodies fell. The squad froze. Sniper fire. Kale shouted, "Not ours," someone yelled back. "No, wait, I think." Kale's voice faded as he turned toward the comms tower, where a shadow moved slightly atop the peak. Then silence returned. Minutes passed. The squad reached the designated checkpoint with no resistance. Not a single hostile appeared to challenge them. They found only corpses, each killed with precise, single shots, temple, heart, spine. No wasted ammunition. No evidence of struggle. Back at base, Locke returned without ceremony. He didn't offer a report, just handed over the scope footage, nodded once, and disappeared into his quarters. Kale watched him go, unsettled. Later that night, a junior officer compiled the operation log. The kill count was 21, all confirmed. No civilian casualties. No collateral damage. All from one rifle. The report was sent up the chain. By the next morning, it had been read in hushed silence by members of the sector command. Commander Verg stared at the datapad, mandibles twitching. 21, he said softly. "He's human," his aide replied. "You asked for unpredictable." Verg didn't respond. His gaze remained fixed on the cold tally of confirmed kills, his thoughts darker than before. And across the stars, more missions waited. The next mission was supposed to be routine, a supply route clearance through the Archon Ridge. It had been hit with sporadic ambushes over the past week, enough to delay transport convoys and irritate the logistics brass, but nothing the Empire's elite couldn't handle. Omega Squad was dispatched with Locke, once again assigned to Overwatch. The squad moved with renewed caution this time, not because the terrain had changed, but because of him. No one questioned his effectiveness. That part was beyond dispute now. What unsettled them was the way it happened. Silent, clinical, and without the visible strain that most soldiers bore after a kill. He didn't celebrate. He didn't debrief. He simply returned, like a shadow that followed orders. Kale briefed the squad just before deployment. His tone, usually unshakable, had a new edge. Reports indicate potential insurgent presence along Ridge Marker 4. We maintain formation. No deviations. Locke, same position as before. You will not engage without confirmation. Locke didn't nod. He simply turned and walked toward the drop zone, adjusting the strap of his rifle with one hand. They descended without incident. The air in the Archon Ridge was thinner, laced with the chemical decay of old mining operations. Abandoned machinery lay like fossils in the dust, creating natural choke points between rusted towers and empty ore silos. Omega Squad advanced cautiously, checking every corner, their sensors sweeping wide arcs. And above, nested in the skeletal remains of a collapsed mining rig, Locke watched. Through his scope, movement blossomed like sparks across the terrain. Subtle shifts in shadow, the sway of disturbed dust, heat signatures flickering unnaturally in the distance. The enemy wasn't waiting in ambush. They were preparing a trap. The squad was walking into a snare. He exhaled slowly, letting his fingers settle against the trigger. He spoke once, low and clipped, through the backup comm still embedded in his collar. "Contact. 4 o'clock. Silo base. Prepare for breach." Kale's response was immediate. "Copy. Repositioning." A second later, the first shot cracked through the ridge. Locke hit a scout mid-sprint. A narrow shot through the neck that severed spine and trachea in a single round. Then another target, perched atop a tower with a plasma rifle, tumbled forward as the round split his visor. The rest of the enemy force now revealed open fire. Omega's squad returned fire, but they barely had to. Locke painted the battlefield in silence. One chopper threat, one kilper shot. Through the chaos, the enemy faltered. Their rear ranks disintegrated first, picked apart before they could even return fire. Those who tried to charge were dropped mid-lunge. Those who ran found themselves sprinting into crossfire. Not a single one made it more than a few steps before falling. When the dust settled, the silence felt unnerving. Too complete. Omega's squad regrouped at the base of the ridge. The bodies lay sprawled in precise arcs, each hit surgical. A Brachary soldier, not prone to emotion, muttered a short prayer to the war god of his people, not out of reverence, but fear. Kale tapped into the squad's log interface and pulled the raw data. The results stared back at him with sterile precision. 36 confirmed kills, all credited to one soldier. No friendly fire, no civilian presence, not even a missed shot. The number hung in the air like a hanging sword. They returned to base without further incident, though no one spoke on the transport back. Even the Brachary remained silent. The mission logs were compiled, verified, and sent to Sector Command. An hour later, 3 ranking strategists called an emergency review. Commander Vurick reviewed the footage in private. He watched the enemy fall one by one, each death more unnerving than the last. Locke never flinched. He never lost rhythm. His breathing didn't spike once, not even under fire. Vurick enlarged the biometric feed. Pulse rate, stable. Ocular tracking, flawless. Stress response, minimal. He's not using enhancements, Vurick muttered aloud. No implants, no stimulants, just instinct. His aide, waiting at the corner of the room, cleared his throat. There's more, sir. A civilian logistics transport recorded background audio from the operation. Off-channel. We isolated a few seconds where Locke spoke. Vurick turned. He communicated? The aide nodded, pale. Just 6 words. Before the first shot, the commander opened the file. It was static at first, then the unmistakable calm of Locke's voice. Prepare for breach. They're already here. It wasn't fear. It wasn't even excitement. It was certainty. The next morning, Locke was called into an intelligence debrief. Not a formal one. There was no rank between him and the Empire's information analyst, but an observation review where 2 analysts attempted to ask questions without making them sound like accusations. Sergeant Locke, one began, her voice mechanical through the translation filter. Your kill count over 2 operations is 57 confirmed. Would you describe yourself as exceptional? No, Locke said. Then how? Targets move, he interrupted. I shoot. If they stop moving, I stop shooting. The other analyst, a bulbous-eyed researcher from Solari species, leaned forward. There are systems designed to make decisions like that. AI-calibrated railguns, tactical drones. Yet you outperform them consistently. Why? Locke paused, not out of hesitation, but boredom. Machines hesitate, he said. They need parameters, morality, risk calculations. I don't. That ended the session. Word spread fast, as it always did in the Empire's corridors. Not official reports, but whispered rumors of a human who could end battles alone, of a soldier who didn't need orders or support. Some began calling him the Ghost. Others had less romantic names. Deathbringer, Anomaly, Aberration. Kale tried to speak with him once more, after hours, on the observation deck overlooking Ferox's axis orbit. He approached Locke without armor, without rank. You're not just another soldier, Kale said. Locke didn't reply. You terrify them, Kale continued. Not just the enemy. Us. Still no response. Finally, Locke turned. His face was unreadable, but his voice was colder than the vacuum outside. Then send someone else next time. He walked away. And yet, when the next mission was scheduled, a joint operation in the shattered city of Archalon Prime, his name was already on the roster. Sector Command summoned a classified review under the pretense of strategic reassessment, but everyone in the chamber knew it was about the human. The room, hidden within the Imperial Dreadnought Obsidian Pact, was lined with grav-suspended data holospheres and flickering tactical overlays. 12 figures surrounded the circular table: admirals, behavioral analysts, fleet tacticians. Commander Vuric presided at the center, his expression unreadable behind his armored carapace. "The kill count has reached 92, he said, "in 3 deployments." No one spoke at first. The implications sat too heavily between them. An intelligence coordinator from the Valari sector finally stirred. Her elongated fingers tapped against her datapad. "There is no record of non-augmented infantry achieving that level of lethality, not even during the Draxan purges. Not with this consistency." "He is human," growled a Gryvax general, his voice a low metallic rumble. "They are unpredictable, yes. Capable, yes. But this is something else. It borders on myth. Or madness," another muttered. Vuric activated a feed above the table. A rotating file appeared: Earth Defense Force archives. Partially decrypted. Redacted segments flickered like static. "We requisitioned access to his personnel dossier. Human Command tried to restrict it. We bypassed the security firewall." He paused. "This is not a soldier. This is a survivor." Images surfaced. Scorched cityscapes, collapsed buildings, urban environments laced with debris and civilian corpses. Mission tags appear beneath each: Op Lantern Vale, Op Nocturne, Op Glasswalk, all Black Ops, all suppressed from public records, each with Locke's name. The footage was grainy, yet horrifyingly clear. In one mission, Locke moved through a war-torn slum with 4 rounds left in his magazine and 13 hostiles between him and his objective. He didn't retreat. He didn't pause. He moved with cold precision, like death given direction. A behavioral analyst spoke, without lifting her gaze. He was deployed in conflict zones too unstable for drones. Zones where ethics conflicted with survival. His choices were not trained, they were learned. "You mean he's damaged?" said the Gryvax general. "No," she replied. "I mean he adapted." Outside the chamber, Locke waited in the observation lounge. It wasn't a cell, but the guards posted at either end of the corridor told a different story. He sat alone, eyes closed, his rifle resting beside him like a sleeping beast. Kale arrived unannounced, without rank displayed on his uniform. The Valari officer had requested access against protocol, citing field familiarity. Whether that was trust or unease, even he wasn't sure. "You know why they're talking," Kale said. Locke opened his eyes but didn't speak. "They think you're dangerous. Not just to the enemy. To us." Locke picked up his rifle, inspected the chamber, then set it back down. "They're not wrong." Kale tilted his head. "You don't deny it?" "Dangerous is context," Locke said. "To the ones I aim at, I'm lethal. To the ones beside me, I'm insurance. The only variable is the trigger." Kale studied him for a long moment. "You're not like other humans I've served with. That's the idea." Elsewhere on the ship, the analysts pushed further into the restricted files. Deeper psychological reports surfaced. Fragments from field therapists' after-action assessments. Encrypted recordings. The deeper they searched, the less they found about Locke the man, and the more they saw Locke the function. In one recovered recording, a weary field psychologist asked him about remorse, about the emotional toll of his missions. His voice in the recording was quiet, even childlike. "I don't feel less," he said. "I feel later, after the fight, when I'm alone." The psychologist asked if he feared what he'd become. "No," Locke said. "I fear it will be needed again." The review committee dispersed in silence that day, too shaken to reach a consensus. A recommendation was made: submit Locke for psychological containment and further study. But no one volunteered to deliver the order. Even those who feared him didn't want to provoke him. Meanwhile, preparations for the Archalon Prime operation were underway. The city had been glassed from orbit during a previous rebellion, but its underground sectors had remained intact, now infested with insurgents using the tunnels to raid orbital platforms. The mission required close-quarters infiltration, urban warfare, the kind Locke excelled at. Kale approached him the night before deployment. "Command still doesn't trust you," he said. "They shouldn't," Locke replied. Yet they keep sending you. Because I do what needs doing. Kale hesitated. There will be civilians this time. Survivors. Refugees in the tunnels. It's not a clean battlefield. Locke's expression didn't change. It never is. The next day, the transport launched into orbit, carrying Omega Squad toward the ruins of Archalon Prime. Below them, the shattered city awaited, blackened towers and fractured concrete veining across a wasteland of ash and silence. Locke sat alone during the descent, eyes closed, rifle across his knees. Kale watched him, wondering, not for the first time, if this man was a soldier or something else entirely. And deep below the city's surface, within the abandoned metro rails and collapsed shelters, the enemy prepared. They knew the Empire was coming, but they didn't know the human was with them. The city was a graveyard. Every structure bore the scars of orbital fire. Windows melted into slag. Towers sheared mid-spire. Vehicles fused to the roads they once traveled. Archalon Prime no longer resembled a city, so much as a memory of one. And beneath it, in the labyrinth of subways and collapsed zones, ghosts moved with purpose. Omega Squad descended through a breached transit shaft, rappelling into shadow. The squad's helmets flickered to thermal as natural light surrendered to pitch. Concrete dust clouded their paths. The stench of decay, of things left too long in the dark, clung to the air. Locke moved ahead of the team, though no one gave the order. His presence felt less like leadership and more like inevitability. Kale gave a single nod to the others. No one questioned it. The tunnels twisted like veins beneath the corpse of the city. Rubble narrowed their path. Whole sections were collapsed from the shock of prior bombings. The deeper they pushed, the more the architecture changed. Metal supports replaced concrete, then gave way to older stone passages, remnants of a city even older than the one above. They encountered the first signs of the insurgents near what used to be a rail maintenance bay. Trip wires, homemade EMP traps. Subtle, designed to catch patrol drones, not soldiers. But Locke spotted them all, dismantling each one silently, efficiently. When Kale offered to help, Locke waved him back. Don't memorize patterns, Locke murmured. Memorize logic. Kale frowned. Meaning, they leave traps like they think. You learn the trap, you learn them. A soft click echoed through the tunnel. Everyone froze. Locke stepped left, raised his rifle, and fired into a dark alcove before anyone else could react. The body slumped forward, a thin man in makeshift armor. A crude detonator fell from his limp hand, thumb inches from the trigger. The silence returned. They're testing us, Locke said. Scouting. Kale cursed under his breath. They knew we were coming. No, Locke replied. They knew I was coming. The deeper they went, the more resistance they faced. Hit and fade tactics. Distraction flares. One soldier was wounded by a ricocheted slug. Another lost their comms to a pulse mine. Still, they pressed forward. Locke led without hesitation. Each step deliberate, each glance sweeping for threats even the sensors missed. The squad reached the hub, an ancient interchange station with rusted trams and flickering remnants of emergency lighting. From above, enemy fire poured in. Makeshift platforms in the rafters concealed insurgents armed with scavenged plasma rifles and mining explosives. Kale barked orders. Omega Squad returned fire, but they were pinned. Locke didn't wait. He moved, sliding beneath a fallen support beam, using debris as cover. He climbed up through a ventilation shaft, disappearing from sight. The firefight raged below until one by one, the insurgents began to fall, not from frontal assault. From behind, when Locke reappeared, smoke curling from his rifle, silence had reclaimed the interchange. The squad stared, not in awe but in fear. Kale approached slowly. Clear. Locke nodded. For now, they'll regroup. They're protecting something, Kale said. It's not just a base. They're not holding ground, they're buying time. Locke's gaze dropped to the rusted rail lines leading deeper underground. Then we follow. The last stretch of tunnel was unmarked. No lights, no signals, just blackness. The walls here were older than the Empire's records. Pre-colonial, untouched since before the first orbital descent. Whatever waited ahead had been hidden for decades. When they reached the terminus, they found it, a vault, massive, ancient, sealed by layered metal, and scarred with centuries of corrosion. Insurgents guarded its perimeter, but they didn't fire. They stood like sentries, solemn and still. Kale raised a hand to halt the squad. Locke stepped forward, rifle lowered. The insurgent leader emerged, a woman with gray streaks in her hair and soot across her cheeks. She didn't raise a weapon. She simply looked at Locke and said, "You were one of ours once." The air stilled. Kale turned sharply. "What is she talking about?" Locke said nothing. "You remember," the woman said. "Operation Lantern Veil. You saw what they did. You did what they told you." Locke's fingers tightened slightly around the stock of his rifle. "You think they call you monster because you're dangerous?" she continued. "No, they call you monster because you survived being theirs." Kale stepped forward, eyes hard. "Locke, is she telling the truth?" Locke's voice was soft. "It doesn't matter." "It does to me," Kale replied. Locke finally turned. "They burned that city from orbit because I couldn't pull the trigger on a child holding a bomb. 3 minutes later, my entire unit was dead. After that, I didn't hesitate again." Silence blanketed them. The woman lowered her eyes. "You were never the weapon. You were the warning." Locke said nothing. Then, without another word, he raised his rifle and pulled the trigger. The insurgent leader dropped. The remaining insurgents didn't move. They simply stepped back from the vault and disappeared into the shadows beyond. Kale stared at him. "Why?" "She was going to open it," Locke said. "Whatever's in there, Command can decide." And for the first time, Kale saw something new in Locke's eyes. Not calm, not precision, but exhaustion. They called in the retrieval team. The vault would be sealed and transported for analysis. Omega's squad prepped for exfil. As they ascended from the tunnels, Kale looked back once. Locke stood alone at the bottom of the shaft, one hand resting on the rail. His silhouette etched in the dim light. "I feel later," Locke had said once. Kale wondered if now he finally would.